Hey, what's going on? It's Coach Luca back here with some more, or should I vlog, Coach's Corner. Today we're going to break down a little bit of how to structure a training session. Now, I've done quite a few of these. I feel like every time I'm trying to get a different angle, maybe a little bit of different insight, but really just give you, I would say, the framework of creating programs, some understanding of how to build great programs to help people get results. And I always kind of feel like I'm pushing back into this athlete for life framework, but really to me it's just good programming, right? To make people have the show and the go, make them, I would say, look, feel, and perform better. Okay, which, like I said, a lot of programs don't include the side of the performance enough, meaning even the speed, the power, the explosiveness. Even if a program is like to, create a body transformation, body composition transformation, this helps and it makes it better. So let's break down like the training session template in a little bit of a different way. And I'll guide you, give you an example, and kind of go behind the scenes on some insights, even on some rep ranges and things like that, because I want you to be able to look at this and like create stuff, right? So when we look at phase one is the dynamic warm-up, and this is kind of when you guys heard me talk about the R7, release, reset, readiness, right? So this includes to me like coming in and doing any type of soft tissue work, lacrosse ball, foam rolling, doing breathing drills for a reset, for instance, if you're like really high strung. The stuff that we teach. And then readiness is our dynamic warm-ups. And you guys have seen me do a framework for it, actually give you a whole vlog of how to create a quality dynamic warm-up for your training clients, for yourself. So that's part one. Part two is CNS intensive. Okay, this is where kind of like I would say a lot of programs, don't include if it's not for athletes. And I think this is a big mistake because again, CNS intensive actually down here, I showed it basically, what is it? Well, we know that power is force times velocity. And a simple way for people to understand that too is power is strength times speed, right? And most of the programs you just see focus on strength training, not a lot on speed, not a lot on power and things like that. And when we look at force, what is force? Well, force is mass times acceleration, right? And you don't see a lot of emphasis on this acceleration part. And what I mean by that is even the intent of, and I talked about it in a power module vlog, when you get a load, like lifting the load faster, right? That's why I do like things like VBT, velocity-based training monitors on bars, because it's really good to show somebody like, hey, this is how fast you're lifting this, lift it faster, right? So then there's a bigger intent, they move the weight faster, and then if you move weight faster, you can produce more force, right? And for athletes, this is a very important thing, right? The past vlog that I just did, on the force, on the strength speed continuum, force velocity continuum, most people don't train different, I would say, velocity. So you might lift a heavy weight, but you're not lifting a lighter weight with a lot of speed, right? You're not throwing dynaballs, med balls, things of that nature. That's gonna really help you develop different athletic abilities that all matter. And it's actually gonna improve, like I said, not only your performance, but the way that you look. This self-explanatory here, strength training, right? Kind of like our main strength exercises. And we'll have a little bit to say here because once we get to the other side, what I do like to do here for most people is a primer, right? And, meaning that we've got warmed up, but I do like, for instance, if I'm squatting, which is gonna be an example, for most people it'd be great to do some calf raises, like stretch position, full range of motion going up, get hamstrings and glutes engaged. So for instance, doing hamstring curls or glute bridges. And also from there, something stability based, so like single leg RDL. Doesn't have to be heavy, but we do know that when we can stabilize the joint, the brain allows us to produce more force, right? It feels stable, is gonna produce more force. There's a lot of, like I was saying, new studies that show that the signal of stability is actually faster than just about anything else, which means that it's important, right? The brain deemed it important enough, which is why we kind of want to include that there. And I'll show you guys an example. After the strength training exercises, we have our supplement and accessory work, right? So that's the exercise that follow the main exercise. And from there, core training. Now the core training is interesting because this is where I'd usually put it in a program. Sometimes we would actually go and put it here, right? Or even here, meaning if it's really important for that person to work, we might put it at the end of dynamic warm-ups and do a couple of 2 to 3 sets of a certain exercise there already. It's a possibility. Like I said, neither right or wrong. We're just looking at the focus and emphasis. From there, we'd go into conditioning and then recovery rehab, right? And then phase 8 is like active recovery and rest between training sessions. To me, that just means like you were playing, like it's part of the day of the training, your nutrition, prep for sleep, getting enough sleep. If there's stuff that you need to work on, a lot of my, I would say, NFL guys, or even with the guys with the Seawolves, I'm always like saying like, hey, listen, if you're tight here, here's the protocol, Netflix and stretch, work on this, right? So that, again, that they can already be preparing for the next session. So from there we go to some general volume guidelines, and again, very general, but if you, look, this is how training goes, right? When you can stick to general guidelines, just execute them savagely well, and really go after your training, meaning train with pristine form, focus, intensity, and you're gonna get tons of results for years and years and years. But if we look here, we go, sets and reps and then rest. Muscular endurance, 2 to 4 sets of 12 to 15 reps. And rest is 30 to 60 seconds. Now, here's the kicker, okay? Like once you get really, really strong, if you're doing a hard set of 15 plus reps, like for instance, if I had a phase where I was doing 15 reps on a deadlift, like a challenging weight, there's no way I'm taking a 60-second break, right? So this is why these are general guidelines, right? Once you become, I would say, like high intermediate to advanced, this may change, And for instance, if you're trying to build, of course, this is why it's muscular endurance, because if you're trying to build muscle in those rep ranges, which works, because remember, every rep range, we know the data now shows that if you're taking that, I would say that set close to failure, right? Technical failure with great range of motion, great form, any of the rep ranges will build muscle, right? So if the goal is building muscle, again, versus muscular endurance, if you go really heavy on a set of 15, you're gonna rest more than 30, 60 seconds, right? So just know that, this is why these are general guidelines. Hypertrophy, so building muscle, 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps, 60 to 90 seconds break. I would say more of the new data that's come out is more like 2 to 3 minutes. But I will reinforce something that a colleague of mine, Christian Thibodeau, who's a really smart dude, said. And it's like, there's certain things that are more optimal, like if you enjoy training. For example, I got some clients that I write programs for. They got an hour, 50 minutes sometimes, right, to get their session in. So, and they enjoy having less break in between the sets. That's what works for them, is optimal for them to get it in. So even though the science show like, hey, 2.5 to 3 minutes between sets is optimal for building muscle, because they show up and they maybe have 60 to 90 second breaks in between their exercises, they're sweating, they're getting after it, like it makes it more enjoyable for them to come back and do that type of training. Obviously they're gonna get results. So keep that in mind. That's why these are general guidelines though, right? So that's for muscle building. And in strength, we got 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 8 reps, 2 to 3 minutes, right? So this is where we obviously higher loads, nervous system is more fatigued, and we're gonna take longer breaks. And then power even more so, right? We got 3 to 6 sets of 1 to 6 reps, full recovery, right? Full recovery meaning, man, that's why, even when we do our sprints, for instance, there's a kind of general rule that for every 10 yards of sprinting all out, you got about a minute break, right? So if you sprinted 30 yards, you rest about 3 minutes. Okay, that's why if you've ever done, track and field workouts, I used to train with some of the highest level athletes in Slovenia, Olympic medal winners, and Brigitte Bukarts would run 110 meter hurdles and then rest for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, right? Do active recovery stuff, right? But that's why, right? Because we want to focus. Actually, just had a training session with the Bellevue High School basketball kids. I was explaining this because we had a kind of like a plyo power workout. We had longer breaks, right? Less, like really focused on quality of reps, maximal output, and explaining that doing that in circuits is not going to develop maximum power, explosiveness, vertical jump. We need breaks and we need to put maximum effort in. If you put in short breaks, it starts becoming almost like a conditioning workout, right? So again, these are general guidelines, and I've talked about rep and set schemes. I'm going to talk about that more as we break down some of these. What I'm going to start doing is some live vlogs of program design where people are giving me kind of, I would say, examples of people and building programs. I'm just doing it live so you guys can see it, and we'll talk a little bit about the science behind that, right? So from there, this is I don't actually want this to become overwhelming, and I'll explain this, but the amount of training variables that we can have when we program, okay? So here, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about it, like an example if we progress the program based on some of these. So we got tempo, okay? Again, tempo matters, but I'll give you just 2 examples of how you can change this up based on intent. So whether, if I'm doing, and a lot of times we'll use either isometrics, holds, or we'll do eccentrics, right? Now, these are like, for instance, examples of two types of eccentrics. One is an overspeed eccentric, which means, for example, let's say I'm doing a forward lunge and I'm dropping into it, right? So I'm gonna drop into that lunge, boom, right? I'm almost gonna stomp it here and then drop. So what am I training? I'm training deceleration power, okay? But then I can do a slow eccentric with a heavy load, right? So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, pause, and then punch back up. Now, here we're gonna go obviously with some muscle damage because eccentrics certainly help to build muscle. Now, that will help you with deceleration as well, but there are two different emphases, right, of what are we trying to get out of it, okay? Same thing, like tempo, like, pauses really help kind of kink out those weak links, so a lot of times if we find somebody has a weak link, we may go control down and stop at that weak link and hold for 2 to 3 seconds, then go lower or go up from there, right? From there we have advanced protocols. This is what people focus too early on, okay? Meaning things like power sets, drop sets, rest pause, which is rest pauses. You guys see me talk about it in specific videos. You take, for instance, a 3 rep max load, and then you do a set of 2 reps, rest for 15 seconds, do another 2 reps, rest for 15 seconds, and then do 1 rep, for example. That would be rest pause training. Giant sets where you do 3 or 4 exercises of the same body part, cluster sets, pre-exhaustion training, right? And again, these have a lot of use, but again, when you run out of stuff, like people will start using and throwing all this stuff at a program where you could just build on the basics for a really long period of time, and then once you kind of hit certain ceilings, you can start using that, right? Exercise selection, I mean, that's a simple one to understand. Compound exercises, isometrics, body weight machines, and again, this is where there's tons. Perfect example would be even a program that I'm gonna give you a sample of, where we're doing a safety squat bar. That could be a belt squat, that could be a regular squat, that could be a front squat, that could be a double kettlebell squat, right? That could be a single leg variation, right? Just in that movement pattern, okay? If you have cool machines, this is why I put that here. For instance, like a pendulum squat, okay? Or again, there's different types of belt squats that you can do as well. You could do Hatfield squats, right? Safety squat bar with support. Equipment selection, same thing, like, having to rotate, you got barbells, sandbags, dumbbells, specialty bars, KBs, and understanding that, like, maybe somebody has done 3 months of really hard training, bar on their back, you're gonna go now use sandbags and kettlebells and still go hard as far as like rate of perceived exertion, but the systemic load will be lower. Example, if I do a front squat and I can front squat 300 pounds for 2 or 3. I'm not saying that I can't right now, but if, right, and I do all these phases, and then I go to kettlebells, right, two 88-pound kettlebells, right, 2 bulldogs, are only basically 178 pounds, right? But man, I'm telling you, like doing 6 or 8 reps with that is really challenging. We've had people that can front squat 400 pounds, that could only get, 2 beasts for like 3 reps, even though it's way less load, right, because it's different center of gravity. So we can use that in different protocols for different reasons. Angle of movement, just change, grip width, stance, bench angle, different bars. There's a lot of examples of that, like, a slight incline and a fat bar on a bench press is very different, or should I say is that it's different enough to feel better on the joints than a flat bar bench with a regular bar, right? So we can use that in training variables. Load, that's just weight. So that, perfect example of this max effort day versus dynamic effort deadlift day, right? So max effort, we're gonna, maybe go 4 reps. Dynamic effort, we'll add bands and, go for speed for 3 reps, right? Range of motion, bench press versus board press. I mean, a lot of that, like I said, the teams that I train, especially the pro teams that I train in season, guys get banged up shoulders in rugby all the time. They're not gonna go full range of motion. We'll either change the bar, we'll add board presses, so a 2 board press. We'll go floor press. Oh, this feels good, I can really push it here, right? But if I went all the way down, now I'm feeling some bugging in the joint. Rest periods, max effort squat versus low body metabolic circuits. So there's a phase, whether in a program or a year where we're building general physical preparation, and we might start with some shorter breaks and circuits and kind of build that up before we go into a volume or a strength phase, right? Frequency, simple. 4 times a week, 3 times a week, 2 times a week. There's a lot of people here that start with strength training twice a week, right? And then they build up over time, like literally might be over a year to 3 times a week, and then over another year to 4 times a week. You know, and then we'll go from 2 times full body to a lower upper full, or then to a lower upper, right? Again, that is progressing, those training variables. Volume, which is just your sets and reps, we talked about that, you know, a number of times, how you can progress that. Matter of fact, one of my last videos about program design, I showed this. Then we have mindset. Like, this is a big one, right? But it doesn't get talked about. So performance goals, you know, I'll speak specifically for athletes, but like visualization of, for instance, what they do. So think scrum, tackles, you know, when we use heavy sleds, and I'm like, hey, listen, like, I want you to like push through that and like be aggressive. And then what we can do is we can measure it, right? Because let's say they were moving 500 pounds on the sled over to, you know, 10 yards in a certain amount of time. Then we visualize, we create a performance goal, and we smash that. So now we're creating, like I said, more force, okay? Again, that can be a tool to progress. Then we have density, which is just the amount of work done in a certain amount of time. I actually love density sets. I love density training from, you know, Charles Staley. We use it a lot actually here at Vigor. We use it quite a bit in our small group model programs that I've showed you guys in different vlogs. Then we have rate of perceived exertion, right? Sometimes, like I said, we don't want every training session to be all out. And I can say like, hey, rate of perceived exertion, or reps in reserve is another way to say it, right? Hey, you have 2 more reps in reserve. That's how you're gonna do the set. And then this is another one that like doesn't get talked about, workout partners and music, okay? The quality music, which is why I invested so much in the sound system here at Vigor, is that, you know, it changes the environment, and that environment can push you to train harder, right? And we're having a workout partner. And like I said, from a person that's very self-motivated to train, I have really rough, like when I train with groups of people, I would always be more accountable, more committed, push harder. Even though I'm pretty self-motivated, that's still like a big up, which is why groups, semi-private training, small groups, team training, like helps so much, right? Because you're surrounded by people that push you. So these are all variables, like, and it's a lot to go over, but I will give you an example taking some of these, you know, I'm taking just one day here, right? I'm taking one day, like flipping around those phases that we talked about earlier. So imagine that we did our, I would say our dynamic warm-ups, right? We got through our soft tissue work, we did our reset, and then we went and progressed that dynamic warm-up. Went from single joint to multi-joint. We went from slow to fast. We went from simple to complex, right? And that was like a 10-minute, 12-minute, for instance, warm-up. Then we go into our CNS intensive, right? Which is our lateral hurdle hops, you know, 4 sets of 10. So we got lateral jumps, working on the minimal amount of, I would say, time on the ground, right? So this would be a focus of elasticity. Hey, think like your shoes are, you know, you got your shoes off and there's hot coals on the ground. You want to leave the ground as soon as possible. And then our second one would be broad jumps, right? Now this one we're trying to jump as far as possible, land, stick it, and then do it again. Okay, now sometimes, remember, I did a whole module on contrast training. We might superset that with the strength exercise, right? So meaning putting this here. I like that for not only because it's effective, but it's time saving, especially when we're doing our semi-private training here, whether it's with athletes or whether it's general population, right? But from there, I talked about the primer. So an example here would be like calf raises, hamstring curls, and a single leg exercise, maybe a single leg RDL for stability, or this might even be like a, you know, an airplane that, like, I love the one that Vernon Griffith does. We use it a ton now with stability on a rig. And you'd go do this in a circuit, so it wouldn't take you long, right? Bottom of the stretch, 8 to 10 reps, hamstring curls 10 to 12. You know, you're not getting fatigued, like you're not smashing yourself. You're getting synovial fluid in the joints. You're gonna make everything feel better once you get to that safety squat bar, right? So that safety squat bar now, we might go 4 sets of 3 to 6 reps. Just an example, right? It might be a 4 sets of 4, okay? From there, we got a supplement movement. Those might be dumbbell walking lunges, could be barbell walking lunges, but 3, you know, might be actually safety. So if I was going to be very specific on a supplement part there, I'd go safety bar, walking lunges, 3 to 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. And then we got a couple accessory movements, right? Accessory movements like working on the weak links. For most people, and like I said, this is an example. Might be a barbell dumbbell RDL, 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. And then a glute drive 2 to 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps, right? And this is, like I said, just an example. Remember core, where it could have been at the beginning, we put it here. We got ab rollouts, 2 to 3 sets of those with an exhalation, with a little bit of an eccentric. And our conditioning in this scenario might be, say, more anaerobic lactic, so 10 seconds, heavy, I would say semi-heavy sled, push as fast as you possibly can, rest for 50 seconds, and then we're gonna recover with some breathing and decompression, maybe some decompression, feet up against the wall. We might do, I'd say, some hanging upside down with the Thompson bands. There's a bunch of different protocols here that we can do. But again, we're gonna get that nervous system to calm down into parasympathetic, so we start going into recovery mode. Okay, so this is just an example of a lower body day. Like we could have given an example of upper, we could have given an example of full. But then, let's say the next phase, all right, we're gonna progress this, okay? So we're gonna progress, remember, well, we could go to tempo, and of course, we're not gonna make tempos on everything, but what we can do is, on the RDLs, we're gonna add a 3-second eccentric, right? So now we're gonna go from barbell RDL to maybe dumbbell RDL, and we're gonna go 3, 2, 1, pause, and then coming back up. So now here we're using tempo, okay? Maybe we do an advanced protocol. This is the person that's there, and on the glute drive, we're gonna do some rest pause training, right? So they're gonna get to a heavy set of 12. The last rep that they do, they put the glute drive back up, they rest 15 seconds, then they get as many as they can again, then they rest another 12 to 15 seconds, and they do it again. Now we're only gonna do that on the last set because we don't wanna crush that body too much, okay? Next time around, you know what? They're feeling a little bit beat up from the bar on their back. Now we go into a belt squat, okay? In belt squat, we're now gonna increase the intensity though. So we might go 5 sets of 3, where we were at 4 sets of 4, for instance, right? But no compression on the back, okay? Specific, let's look at something else here. Maybe, for instance, the angle of movement, we talked about that on the RDL. Barbells in front, we go to dumbbells, now we can bring that angle a little bit more in line with the hips so there's less stress on the low back, okay? Frequency, maybe we were doing a lower, upper, full, and now we go to lower, upper, right? So again, you can see how a lot of these things, like we can manipulate, and we actually, did a couple into one program. You don't even have to do that, right? You can just change one thing and already have all those progressions built in. And of course, we always understand that on those days, we're always trying to progress. And sometimes you won't, because that's how training goes, right? You won't progress in like from week to week, but from month to month and over periods, you will, and your body's gonna change and your performance is gonna improve, especially if you, I would say, program and manage this the right way. Because I'm gonna do a whole another vlog on, like I said, managing programs. So meaning you can't, if you do 4 days a week, going heavy and super fast on all 4 days, doesn't make the most sense in the world. Like you have to manage those loads so that your body can recover and adapt, okay? So we'll do that in another blog. But again, this hopefully helps you to continue to take programs and make them better and have more insight on how you can continue to improve them, change them, and two, make them more, let's say as much as challenging as they are, make them fun for people to want to come back and do them. Because that's an important factor, right? Like you can have this great program, people don't enjoy it, don't like coming back to do it, and that's going to be a problem because, like I said, if you have a private training facility, people will have to want to come there and invest. You can't be like holier than thou, this is the science, but people don't enjoy the training. So hopefully this helps you do that as well. That's Coach's Corner. Guys, I'll be back with more program design insights and vlogs to help you out, improve your own training and the training of your clients.